Like last year, the 213 survey too was conducted by Indicus Analytics. The performance of CEOs of all the 78 scheduled commercial banks operating in India were considered by the surveyors, who looked at growth, profitability, work environment, and contribution to inclusive and broad-based growth. But numbers alone can't tell a story. So we also looked at the bankers' management style, their leadership qualities, communication strength, delegation, and vision for the future. The final list of awardees comprises 15 categories, with best banks being awarded size or category-wise. I am especially delighted to note a number of women among our winners. This is not surprising given that some of the India's bankers are headed by women like Chanda Kochar, Shikha Sharma, Archana Bhargav, V.R. Iyer, and Subha Lakshmi Panse. Arundhati Bhattacharya, who is with us today, has recently been named MD of the country's biggest bank. These are individuals who have proven their leadership has no gender. They don't need any all-women's bank or label to be recognized. These are individuals who have proven that leadership has no gender bias, once again emphasizing the fact. I think Indian women are most empowered, only they are not allowed to use their power. Going forward, it promised to be a tough time for all of us, given the state of Indian economy, but still, we are counting our bankers or keep both growth and our spirits up. Now I invite Anand Sharma to come here and deliver his keynote.
Last year, I did say that this is a difficult year for us, and hopefully we'll turn the situation around for the better in 2013. But that has not happened so far, and therefore, cause of concern. This is not the first time, and this won't be the last time, when national economies or global economy have faced turbulent weathers. We know that the global economy has not recovered from the financial and economic crisis of 2008-9. But it's particularly worrisome for countries like India, where we had registered consistently for almost 7 years very high economic growth. And for 5 years we were 9% plus. And for us to come down to 6.9 was a shock. I will still maintain that the decisions which were taken collectively by the G20 countries, the London meeting of April 4, 2009, led to interventions to stabilize to some extent the global economy. There is still need for improved coordination, particularly with regard to some of the decisions by major developed countries. We are today talking of both the movement of capital, availability of capital, the rate of growth, and also the pressures on the currency. We have seen since 1991, when we embarked on the path of economic liberalization, that we were able to step out and compete with the best in the world and achieve growth which ensured doubling of national income within a decade. And emerging economies did it, India did it. It did not happen earlier. When we read history, the major economic powers of the world, within a decade, the doubling of the national incomes never took place, even in the last century. What was a virtuous cycle has turned into a vicious cycle. And irrespective of interventions made, decisions taken, an impression is being given that we are sliding downhill and we have no hope. A word of caution is necessary. That would be in order. But I'll still maintain that don't listen to those who have nothing but negativity to inject. Hear them. You may learn some good things. But I reject it outrightly, that there is only room for despair. There are inherent strengths, resilience of our industry. India has been criticized, both at home and abroad, that why we have not moved fast enough when it comes to reforms. But as I mentioned, and you are aware, we have moved only in one direction, that's forward. So it's a continuous process. Reforms is not like ordering yourself a new suit and tie, and that's the end of it. You keep on adding, you keep on changing. You also adapt, you respond, and learn in the process. That's what India has done. How much of access to credit or affordable credit MSMEs have? Why am I raising this issue? Because SMEs contribute 45% to India's manufacturing and 40% of India's exports. But access to credit is an issue. I have been reading a study done by a young Indian financial expert based in the United States, particularly about innovative financing for the SMEs. Banks have to look at that very seriously. Second is the issue in the context of Indian society. Out of 600,000 habitations in the country, 100,000 do not have access to any banking system. This is the second decade of the 21st century. That needs to change, because financial inclusion and access to banking system also leads to social inclusion. So economic issues cannot be divorced from social and ethical issues. India is one country which has embraced the Basel III norms, and in the next 5 years, we will be globally competitive, and that will ensure that the access to a superior quality of capital will be ensured, and the leveraging ratio will be such that the need for large capital reserves may not be required, whereas you will be better positioned because of the changes, the norms that we have embraced to meet the global benchmarks, the global accounting standards, which will make the Indian banking industry, as you bankers would know better, globally competitive. In India, after a long time, we are seeing negative growth in manufacturing, negative numbers for the IIP, even if it's minus 1.2. Remember, after 2008-9 crisis, we had gone up to, in manufacturing, we had bounced back in December, January 2009-10, January, to 17.5% positive in manufacturing. Now, it's not a word, we all know. It's huge social dimension again. Manufacturing is directly connected to jobs. So is the GDP. So if manufacturing goes up, you are creating more jobs, you are sustaining more jobs. There are more kitchens which are being supported by sustainable incomes. You are meeting the aspirations of the younger generation. If you don't do that, it's the reverse. And we have to bear that in mind. That worries us more. If in a country of 1.2 billion people, with more than 2/3 of our population being young, and the youth of today is not the youth of my generation or many of those who belong to the same. They have access to information, modern tools of technology, they are empowered enough. Therefore, high growth for India and high manufacturing is not a wish or an option. It is a national need and an imperative. You are the largest democracy when it comes to numbers. And you have a situation where decision making is trapped in a shrill discourse and partisan agendas, where every decision made is questioned, every policy made is called into question without any merit, reason, or logic. Implementation is delayed. Atmosphere of panic is created. Institutions which have a responsibility to see that this country's economy does not hurt, have themselves been unfortunately influenced by this discourse. When some sensational statements are made, they shock, but they should not lead to a trend where people, without reflecting on the correctness of a statement or a number, just lap it up and drum it for reasons of either ignorance or pure partisan politics. I'm not here to suggest if there is any alleged act of commission or omission, take action. But a negative and shrill discourse hurts the country, its people, and its future. That is what has hurt India's profile India's growth story. The blame game is the easiest because that does not require any effort. It's just stand up and shout, that's the best thing. But it's important in difficult times for wise men and women to sit together. Set aside the differences and look at what is in the best interest of the country and do that. I'm sure if those good times are not there when we were growing at 9% plus, these will also change. I was looking again at the numbers and they tell a story. Whether those are the social indices, whether the growth models of states, or the investment climate. Despite the climate being vitiated, India has remained one of the top and attractive destinations for FDI. In the last 5 years, you are close to $175 billion US dollars. The numbers speak for themselves. For the last 3 months, our exports have turned positive, despite a very negative environment. Because exports depend not only on the manufacturing capacities and how competitive you are, but the demand in the traditional markets and other markets. I won't get into details that what steps we have taken to diversify into those markets where there is robust economic growth, where the real returns have come. If we had not moved in 2009 to Africa, to South Americas, and looked more closely at Asia Pacific, our exports would not have crossed 306 billion. This year, I'm sure that we will do better. We'll get more FDI. FII can't speak of, but the steps have been taken, and there are areas which are the domain of the Reserve Bank. And one thing more I have to say. Of course, these are the decisions which will be made by the Reserve Bank. But the availability of affordable credit has been an important issue. And for the export sector, how availability of credit can be there and whether the priority sector lending to the export sector will be considered. So I leave these thoughts to you to deliberate upon. And my last word is that irrespective of what is happening, the challenges that we face, this country will be able to weather the storm, turn the tide. Just have faith in yourselves. Thank you.